Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Box Score. I'm your host Hayat, and today we're diving into 6 college basketball matchups on February 25th. We're going all in, thinking out loud, breaking down motivation, matchups, spreads, tempo, injuries, everything, the full picture. This isn't highlights, this isn't a scoreboard recap, this is me walking through every angle, figuring out how these games could realistically play out if the spots, trends, and data line up the way I see them. So grab a notebook, get ready to ride, and let's start connecting the dots. Alright, Uconn versus St. John's. The lean here is St. John's plus 4.5. Let me walk through why. I keep coming back to the stakes in this one because this isn't just another conference game. This feels like it's for all the marbles in the Big East tournament and the Big East Conference regular season championship. You've got Uconn at 25-3 on the year, 15-2 in conference, coming off that 73-63 win over Villanova, which was a really solid bounce back after the Creighton loss. So mentally, I think Uconn feels like they corrected something. They steadied the ship. But then you flip to St. John's, 22-5 overall, 15-1 in conference, and they just blasted Creighton 81-52 at home. And I'll be honest, I thought Creighton might catch them looking ahead, I really did. I thought St. John's might mentally peak at this matchup. But they didn't. They stayed locked in, and that tells me something. Because if St. John's wins this, they move to 16-1 and bump Uconn a game and a half back at 15-3. That's massive. That's leverage. That's control of the Big East regular season title. But if Uconn wins, suddenly they're right back in the driver's seat. So this is pressure. This is edge of your seat stuff. Now here's what connects for me, Uconn's foul trouble issues. When Uconn has struggled this season, it's usually because the opposing team gets to the free throw line. That was the case in the 2 conference losses Uconn has had. And specifically in that first matchup against St. John's, the free throw disparity was everything. St. John's got to the free throw line 19 more times than Uconn. 19. Uconn only shot 5 of 12 from the line, while St. John's shot 22 of 31. That's a 17-point difference at the stripe. That's the game. That erases everything else. And here's the bigger issue, this isn't a one-off. Season long, Uconn is 306th in free throw rate allowed. That's not a small sample. In conference play, they're 10th in the Big East in free throw rate allowed in an 11-team conference. The only team worse in Big East play has been Seton Hall, which is kind of ironic given how good they've been defensively. But that's not where you want to live if you're Uconn going into this matchup. So if this matchup plays out like the first one, where St. John's is dictating physicality, attacking downhill, living at the line, that's a real path. And St. John's has been keeping up their trips to the free throw line, and they are a pretty good free throw shooting team when called upon. So I ask myself, can Uconn really clean that up in a revenge spot with this much pressure? Maybe. Sure. But pressure games usually amplify tendencies, not fix them. And we're getting 4.5 points in a game that could very easily be one possession late. If this thing is tight in the final 2 minutes, and I absolutely think it could be, having the points matters. Do I think Uconn could exact revenge? Absolutely. They're 25-3 for a reason. But if St. John's wins outright, would I be shocked? Not at all. One path I see here is another tight whistle game, St. John's living at the stripe again, and Uconn fighting uphill in free throw margin. That's why the value side for me is St. John's. Plus 4.5. Yeah, the lean sticks at St. John's plus 4.5. Next game, Texas Longhorns versus Florida Gator. The lean here is Florida laying the points. Let me walk through why. Texas is 17-10 on the year, 15-11 against the number, and they're coming off that 91-8 loss to Georgia. And that's ugly. Meanwhile, Florida is 21-6, 14-13 against the number, and they just drilled Miss 94-75. And here's where I start thinking out loud about profile and consistency. Because yes, Florida at home has had some spots where they played with their food. Laying 12.5 against Kentucky, they win by 9. Laying 22.5 against South Carolina, they win by 14. Comfortable wins, sure, but not covers. So there's a little bit of, are they fully locked in at home? Energy. But then I look at what Florida has done on the road and it's almost the opposite mentality. A 19-point win over Miss. A 20-point win over Georgia. 19 over Texas A&M. They doubled up South Carolina 95-48. They won at Vanderbilt at Vandy. Those are statements. Those aren't sleepwalk wins. That's Florida saying, we're good everywhere. Now Texas, this is where I struggle. They've got some decent wins. They beat Miss at home. They beat Georgia at home. They beat Alabama on the road. Vanderbilt at home. So it's not like there's nothing there. But when they've had to step up in class consistently, they've fallen flat. They lost to Duke in their season opener. They lost to Uconn. They lost to Virginia. The non-conference strength of schedule wasn't particularly tough outside of those games. And yes, latest bracketology report on ESPN has Texas on a 10 line. But for me, I'm not buying it. I think they're getting the SEC bump. I think they're getting name brand credit. I think they're getting benefit of the doubt. But when I watch the profile and the results, I see a team that's a little bit fraudulent. I do. I think they're selling snake oil. And if this matchup plays out like Florida's road performances have played out, Texas is in trouble. Now there is a look-ahead spot here for Florida with Arkansas on deck. And that Arkansas game could be very instrumental in determining the SEC regular season championship. Florida leading the way. Arkansas one of 3 teams at 10-4 chasing them down. So yeah, in theory, this could be a distraction spot. But I actually see the opposite. A win here for Florida goes a long way toward putting a hand on that SEC regular season title. And if they handle business here, they control their destiny. What connects for me is this: Florida has shown they travel with intent. Texas has shown that when the level rises, they wobble. If Florida comes out focused, brings that road edge, and doesn't let Texas hang around early, I think the class difference shows. And I'm not overcomplicating it. I think Florida is the much better team. I think they prove it. Yeah, the lean stays Florida laying the points. Next game we have Wake Forest taking on Boston College. The lean here is Wake Forest minus 4.5. Let me walk through why. I start with the motivation angle because if this matchup plays out like a team that still has something to fight for versus a team that's just playing out the string, that matters. Boston College is 9-18 on the season, 2-12 in the conference. Wake Forest is 14-13 overall, 5-9 in conference play, and this game was delayed originally, postponed, now rescheduled. So there's already some weird rhythm around it. But Wake Forest is the only team here that realistically has anything left to play for, and even they're hanging on by a thread. Both teams are coming off losses. Wake Forest lost to Virginia Tech on the road last time out. Boston College lost by 24 to SMU on the road. And Boston College has now lost 8 games in a row. 8. That's not just a blip, that's a trend. Now Wake Forest did win 3 games in a row prior to that Virginia Tech loss. So if this matchup plays out like the Wake Forest team that won those 3 straight and not the one that stumbled last time out, there's a clear gap here. Boston College just hasn't shown the ability to stop the bleeding. And when I dig into the numbers, that's where it starts to connect for me. KenPom has Boston College at 160th overall. Wake Forest is sitting at 76. That's not a small difference. Boston College does have a decent defensive rating. They're 70th, so that's the one area you can point to and say okay, there's some backbone there. But offensively they're 258th. That's rough. That's a grind. And they haven't played nearly as tough of a schedule as Wake Forest. Boston College is 84th in overall strength of schedule net rating, and their non-con strength of schedule net rating is all the way down at 331st. That's basically the basement. Wake Forest by comparison is 172nd in non-con strength of schedule net rating and 35th overall strength of schedule net rating. That's a massive gap in battle testing. Defensively Wake Forest is 99th, so right inside the top 100, and offensively they're 73rd. So if this matchup plays out like efficiency versus inefficiency, Wake Forest has the edge on both ends. But here's where I hesitate. Wake Forest is 2-7 in their last 9 games on the road. On the season they're just 2-5 away from home. That's not inspiring. Boston College is only 8-7 at home, but they've lost 4 straight at home as well. So neither team is exactly lighting the world on fire in these splits. Wake Forest shoots the 3-ball pretty well in volume, 77th in the nation in 3-point shots made per game. But they're only 194th in three-point shooting percentage at just under 34%. So they're more volume than elite efficiency. Boston College, though, is 52nd in the nation for three-point shooting percentage allowed, coming in at 31st. So if this matchup plays out like Boston College, running shooters off the line and contesting well, that's the path for them to hang around. They're also the better rebounding team, 85th in rebounds per game, and Wake Forest is 275th in rebounds per game. That's a real concern. If Boston College controls the glass and limits second chances, that tightens the margin. But what connects for me is depth and scoring options. Wake Forest is just deeper. They've got Jay Harris averaging 21 points per game, and they've got 4 players scoring in double figures, and all 4 can shoot from beyond the arc. So if Wake Forest gets going from the perimeter, even against a 31% three-point shooting percentage allowed defense, the math shifts. I can see Boston College keeping it close early, especially at home, especially with Wake Forest's 2-5 road record. But one path I see here is Wake Forest's offensive balance eventually wearing Boston College down, especially a Boston College team that's lost 8 in a row and 4 straight at home. The line is sitting at 4.5 at -105 at DraftKings and a couple other books. You can get 3.5 at -120 at Hard Rock Bet or -127 at DraftKings if you want that extra cushion. For me, if this matchup plays out like talent and motivation winning out late, Wake Forest pulls away in the final 5 minutes and gets that cover. Yeah, the lean sticks at Wake Forest -4.5. Quick pause. If you've already caught even one lean that makes sense to you, hit that like button. Seriously, it tells me these full slates are worth doing and helps me keep bringing these deep, messy breakdowns. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It takes a second, but it helps the channel grow and keeps you locked into all the live action and full game analysis we're dropping. Trust me, you don't want to miss these takes. Now next game here is Bucknell headed into West Point to play Army. The lean here is Army at home. Let me walk through why. This one tips at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, standalone, early morning action, 9 a.m. my time, so yeah, we're up early with it. And if this matchup plays out like 2 evenly matched Patriot League teams grinding through possessions, it's going to be ugly. These teams already played on January 21st of 2026 at Bucknell. Army was catching 4.5 and they won outright. It went to overtime. It was close, it was competitive, but Army got it done. And that matters to me. Because Bucknell has lost 5 straight games. 5. And they've failed to cover in their last 5. They were 2.5-point favorites against Holy Cross in their last game, supposed to be a bounce-back spot, and they lost by 9. So if this matchup plays out like current form matters, Bucknell is ice cold. Army hasn't won much this season, but that overtime win on January 21st of 2026 was one of their better wins. It was a statement for them. When I look at the Ken Pom chart, it's red everywhere. It's not pretty. Army looks like they've got a bit of an edge offensively, Bucknell a bit of an edge defensively, but they're pretty damn even overall. So in a game where the metrics are close, I start leaning on situational stuff. Bucknell is 3-10 straight up on the road. That's a big one. If this matchup plays out like a toss-up, I want the home team. I want the team that already proved they can beat this opponent, even if it took overtime. One path I see here is another tight, grindy game where neither offense looks great, but Army does just enough at home in West Point to edge it out. And with Bucknell dropping 5 straight and failing to cover in their last 5, I just can't get there with them on the road. So yeah, in a game that's ugly, early, and standalone, I'll ride with the team that already showed me they can win this matchup. That's why the lean stays Army at home. Here we have next game between Iowa taking on Ohio State. The lean here is Ohio State +3. Let me walk through why. Okay, so we got Iowa at 19-8 on the year, 9-7 in conference play, and they have dropped 3 of their last 4 after that 84-71 loss to Wisconsin. That's a little eyebrow-raising, right? They were cruising, now they're stumbling. Ohio State, 17-10 overall, 9-7 in conference, just coming off a 66-60 loss to Michigan State, and they've alternated wins and losses in each of their last 10 games. That's consistency in the pattern of inconsistency, I guess. But here's the thing, if this matchup plays out like Ohio State being the scrappy, competitive team that can hang with the big boys in the Big Ten. They've got a real shot to make this respectable, maybe even sneak out a win. They haven't been destroyed in their road games. Losses to Washington, Michigan by 12, Wisconsin by 10, Michigan State by 6. Yeah, losses, but not blowouts. They've kept it competitive, and that counts for something. Now, I'm looking at Iowa, and man, their tempo is the story here. This team is slow, 350th in adjusted tempo, 354th in average possession length on offense. In conference play, they're the second slowest team in possession length as well. If this matchup plays out like Iowa dragging teams into the mud, it'll keep the score low, keep games tight, and prevent them from pulling away in a margin of victory sense. That's why when I check their home games since January 3rd, there's no dominating blowouts. They beat UCLA by 13, Rutgers by 6, USC by 1, Northwestern by 6, Nebraska by 5. The slow pace controls the game, but it also keeps everything within reach for a team like Ohio State. They can stay in it if Iowa can't score in bursts. Iowa's defense is solid at home, no question. They lock teams down, they force tough shots. But if this matchup plays out like Ohio State capitalizing on the few possessions they get, using that efficiency and taking advantage of scoring opportunities early and often, they can hang close. And that's what I see. Iowa isn't going to run up a massive number here. Pace keeps it tight. Ohio State has the ability to score in bursts, they've shown it, and they've got the motivation of needing to make a statement for the NCAA tournament committee. They're right on the bubble, one of the first 4 out, and they know every game counts. One path I see here is Ohio State keeping it close in the first half, maybe even trading leads, and if they hit the right shots, finish the game with Iowa only scraping by, and that's enough to cover the points. So yeah, I'll take the Buckeyes +3 in this one. Even if I'm not their biggest fan this season, this feels like a spot where value meets situational edge. Yeah, the lean sticks at Ohio State +3. Now move to last game of this video, Arkansas taking on Texas A&M. The lean here is the over 170.5. Let me walk through why. Arkansas comes in hot off a 94-86 win over Missouri, 20-7 on the year, 10-4 in conference. Texas A&M just beat Oklahoma 75-71, 19-8 overall, 9-5 in conference. Both teams still jockeying for positioning in the SEC, trying to stay in the top tier, maybe push for that top 4 seed for the double bye in the SEC tournament. But what connects for me here is Arkansas's offense. They are rolling. They haven't scored fewer than 83 points in well over a month, save for a 77 against Kentucky and a loss to Georgia 90-76 on January 17. They are top 25 in average possession length on offense, top 35 in adjusted tempo season long, second fastest pace in the SEC, and the best 2-point offense in the conference. So if this matchup plays out like Arkansas scoring at will, there's no slowing them down. They're efficient, fast, and can pour points on just about anybody. Texas A&M, though, they're not a slouch offensively. They've scored points at will in conference play, putting up 80 against Missouri, 92 against Georgia, 92 against South Carolina at home. They push the pace, they shoot a lot of threes, and they can hang in a fast-paced game. But Arkansas's three-point defense has been elite, fewest points allowed via threes in SEC play. So if this matchup plays out like Texas A&M trying to light it up from deep, Arkansas can clamp down just enough to make it interesting. But here's the thing, even if Arkansas limits the three-pointers, they can still score in the paint, run the floor, and hit free throws. One path I see here is a track meet, both teams trading buckets, running the floor, Arkansas driving the pace, Texas A&M keeping up when they can, but the total points stacking up because neither defense is completely dominant against the offensive strengths of the other. And when you look at recent production, Arkansas has been practically automatic. If this matchup plays out like the last month of games for them, it's high-scoring, fun, explosive basketball. Texas A&M can't keep it down for 40 minutes. I think this game hits the over 170.5 easily, maybe even creeping into the 175s if both teams catch fire from the floor. So yeah, for me, give me the over in this one, 170.5, and I think we're in for a shootout. Yeah, the lean sticks at over 170.5. Alright, That wraps it up for all 6 matchups on February 25th. As always, this is pure analysis and opinion, nothing guaranteed, just me thinking through how these games could unfold if the matchups, trends, and situations hit like we see them on paper. I want to hear from you. Drop a Z in the comments and let me know which game caught your eye, which lean you're feeling, or if you see a path I didn't call out. More deep dives, full slates, and messy, thinking out loud breakdowns coming soon. Same raw style, same full-on analysis.